Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are. I hope everyone is in good shape and good condition. We have a very important topic and distinguished guests. Professor Bola, welcome. I would request our guests to put their videos on. Yes, I see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Honorable Liban. Awesome, great. So is Nelsa, you back? Can you hear us? Can you communicate? Hello, Nelisa. Can you hear us now?
Hi, can we hear and see me now? Am I better?
Okay, cool, better now, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Should I just start all over? I'm so sorry about that.
No problem.
Cool, there we go. Hi, everyone, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in Africa. My name is Narissa Matean, and I'm gonna be doing the moderating for today. I'd like to start off by welcoming all of you. I'm very excited for today. I hope you're excited too. We have some really amazing speakers. I'm gonna start off by introducing myself. My name is Narissa. I am from South Africa. I am currently an international relations student, which is why I'm very excited to be the moderator for today. I work with the African Rebirth in terms of their communications. So I help with their social media, their images, all of that. Yeah, I'm gonna start by introducing our panelists for today. If at any point there's any questions or any issues with connection, just let me know. Today we have two very esteemed guests. First, we have Professor Bola Akintarina, and we have Honorable Minister Liban Yusuf Osman. I'm gonna start with Professor Bola Akintarina. He has completed his Master's in Philosophy, Diplomatic History at the University of Paris. He's also completed his PhD in International Relations at the University of Paris-Sorbonne. He has a postdoctoral certificate in Public Policy and Affairs at the University of Maryland in the United States. He is a former special assistant to Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs. He's a former special assistant to Nigeria's Minister of Interior. He is a research professor of international relations at the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, NIA. He's the former Director General of NIA. He is the President and Director General of the Bola Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies from 2016 till date. He is also the State Coordinator on National Anti-Corruption Volunteer Corps. And this is the Lagos State chapter. Wow, that is a very long bio, and that tells you just how accomplished he is. I hope I didn't miss anything out. We are so honored to have you today, and we're very excited.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Okay, and then we have Honorable Liban Yusuf Osman. He is a Somaliland politician who is currently serving as the Deputy and Acting Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of Somaliland. Liban formerly served as the Deputy Health Minister of Somaliland. He also served as the Deputy Minister of Public Works and Housing of Somaliland. In terms of his education career, he has a Bachelor of Economics from Hargeisa University. He also has a master's degree in project management from Hargeisa University. Wow. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to have you. You're still muted. Can you unmute yourself and just say hi?
Thank you for having me, Larissa. I think can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Cool. And I'm going to be calling our founder, Mr. Enoch, and he's going to be leading us into discussion today.
Oh, thank you, Nelisa, for the warm welcome and reading excellent distinguished bios. I am greatly honored to, first of all, accepting our invitation, despite your busy schedules. One of the Honorable Ban is the Minister of Foreign Affairs, a very busy office. And Professor Bola is a researcher and a diplomat, a career diplomat. Of course, you could be handling international and national matters, but you spared your time to speak to young Africans. I would say something like, right now, we are speaking to African nation. All countries of Africa and all regions of Africa well represented on this platform. So this is a young platform made of young people who are very ambitious and want to see a change happen in Africa by any means. That's why the resolve is. So I'm excited to host you today, and I will start my engagement with Professor Bola. And you made a very wonderful presentation. So each speaker has like 15 minutes or max, then we shall engage into a Q&A. For Professor Laban, he wants to draw from experience, stating policies and knowledge in that office of international diplomacy. So I would like to start with Professor Bola, and I will share your PowerPoint, if you will. I hope everyone can see it.
Yes, we can.
Okay,
All good.
wonderful. So Professor Bola, it's your time. You are very welcome to present your research, or I call it a research paper in academic terms. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And allow me to avail myself of this unique opportunity to greet all my brothers and sisters in Africa. The topic we have been asked to investigate is titled Diplomacy is an Art of Enhancing and Restraining Power. What can Africa do to balance this and advance its developmental agenda? In responding to this big question, which looks simple but very complex intrinsically, I have structured my paper presentation into three main parts. The first part is to explain, the nature, the features, the characteristics of diplomacy. What really is diplomacy? So the first 6-7 slides actually deal with that, to explain the nature, the dynamics, what makes diplomacy really an art. The second part deals essentially with the intellectual exigencies and the challenges. What does this topic require me to deal with, to reflect on, and then come back to discuss in order to share ideas? The third part now is the trust. What's the trust of my paper? For instance, at the level of intellectual challenges, there are 4 basic responsibilities I am supposed to address as a paper presenter. The first question is diplomacy really an art of enhancing and restricting power? How do we answer that? The second question is which power do we really have in mind? Are we talking about soft power or hard power? And even if we choose to talk about soft power, which element of it do we have in mind? And if it is hard power too, which elements do we consider as essential? The third question is there or can there be a balance between enhancing and restricting of power? Why do I ask this question? It is simply because logically, the act of enhancing power necessarily stops, or restricts power. If you are enhancing, if you are promoting a particular policy, can it not be detrimental to another interest? In this case, promoting, for instance, soft power, can it enhance or restrict? It all depends, and we'll examine that. The fourth intellectual challenge, which is more important, is how does diplomacy assist or enhance or even restrict Africa's developmental agenda? These are the questions that are quite implicit in the topic, and which I have attempted to provide answers to. The third part of the paper is the trust. And in this case, I do agree that diplomacy is not only an art, it is also a technique, it is a tact, it is a method, of enhancing and possibly restricting power. Secondly, definitionally, diplomacy is the method and means of conducting as well as managing the foreign policy interests of nation states in international relations. I've given a simple definition there to enable me sustain the trust of the paper. In this case, if you look at the slides, all points have been raised there. But since we have just 15 minutes, it is not my intention to dwell much on that. And in this case, I would like to quickly go towards the tail end of the slides. We will see that the questions that are asked from slide 9 or 10, I have provided my position, my reflections on that. First of all, can you move to slide 9? Tell me.
Slide 9?
Hello, are you hearing me?
Okay, I can hear you now. You're cutting. Slide 9?
Yes, slide 9.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move beyond the intellectual challenges so that I will have time to deal with the suggestions. Can you go to 10, please?
Okay.
Okay. Now, in terms of how diplomacy can address Africa's developmental agenda, there is the need to look at how enhancing and restraining of power can be addressed in terms of balancing. First of all, the two must be looked at as constituting two sides of the same coin. By implication, they are inseparable. If enhancement is considered as progress, for instance, you are making progress on the one hand, and we are talking about restraining power, then It's just like mathematically, parallel lines do not meet. You cannot be making progress, moving forward, and at the same time also restraining, because the two do constitute the same coin. Maintenance of the same ratio or level of enhancement. What do I mean by that one? If, for instance, you want a balance, that means 50-50. It means that you must have the same level of the quantum of effort required for enhancing. The same quantum of effort must be put in place to stabilize the urge. Look, whether you want to restrain or you want to enhance, both are a resultant from political will. If you want a balance, the political will to ensure balance must be there. In the absence of that, it is waste of time. Now, the next slide, please. 10.
10? Oh, 11.
Yes. 10, 11, yes.
Yeah, 11, yes. That's it.
Now, apart from the political strategy, at the economic level, I am of the considered opinion that Africa must not only decide, but refuse to accept foreign aid, foreign assistance. The reason is that when someone is overblessed, when you have too much of water in your stomach running down your esophagus, then the inconvenience cannot but be there. We are spoon-fed and we are not able to do anything. You can just imagine a situation whereby Africa's development partners account for more than 70% of all development projects in Africa. Then why will the African leaders not begin to sleep? There must be greater commitment to the African Union Agenda 2063, the UN Agenda 2030, as well as greater commitment to the African Continental Free Trade Association. And I also believe that African leaders must adopt isolationist policies, that is, inward-looking development and regional approaches. If you look at how a country like China developed, they closed their doors to the whole world. They adopted the self-reliance policies. And by the time they did all that is necessary, they're able to make progress. Look at the early 70s, even from 1963, during the debate of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Didn't France and China refuse to sign the agreement? But they went back. They put all efforts there to acquire nuclear status. When they did, they now came back to sign an agreement that they refused before. But Africa, as it is, on the one hand, we preach the sermon of an open door, and at the same time, we complain about non-development. That is not good enough. Next slide. Next slide. 12.
Yeah, 12 is here. Yeah.
Okay. Now, finally there, on the political diplomatic strategy, I believe that if we are to be relevant in global politics, we need to begin to encourage citizen diplomacy. We need to develop Swahili, Yoruba, and Hausa as diplomatic languages in Africa. And I will explain to you why it has to be so. If you look at the literature, if you look at the debate, the fight on the use of Arabic, for instance, the use of, Spanish. When they fought there to say no, they should be recognized. And we have accepted that. So English and French remained official languages, but others now insisted. And they had their languages, Russian, Chinese, Arabic, as working languages. We need that one in Africa also. Greater emphasis should be on teaching of physiognomy if we are really to be reckoned with in the future and have good diplomats. Evolving a new African personality through adoption of self-reliant policies seems to me to be a desideratum. And finally, the next slide, 13, 14, no, 14.
Yeah.
Yes, in this case, we need to have very capable, very good diplomats. If, for instance, Africa is reckoned with in the foreseeable future, I'm looking at a diplomat who will have a proficiency in the languages of the UN, particularly, and compostly, English and French, and then one of the working languages to go along with it. A good diplomat actually must be patriotism driven in his diplomatic life. A good diplomat, for instance, is one who must have the capacity, perseverant capacity to take risks, as well as develop the skills of negotiation. I've mentioned a number of all these conditions. There are many, but the essential thing is that the African people do not even respect themselves. We adore anything that is extra African. If you go back to this book, I think it is a Weep Not Child by James Ngugi. I think the name has been changed to Ngugi or something like that. He said the black man is never a black man, but a white man is always a white man. Already, we have what should make Africa great, but we are never exploiting the potentials. We fight ourselves. And in this particular situation, why would you expect the whole world to respect Africa? On this note, since I'm time bound and it's almost 15 minutes, let me just note, can you give me 14 and 15, please?
Yeah.
Yes, 14 and 15. Yeah,
15, okay. We just finished 14, then this is 15. Yeah.
Okay, 15, all right. Well, the bottom line is that if an African diplomat is quite knowledgeable in physiognomy, he has a multidisciplinary educational background, he can keep himself abreast of international current affairs, and more importantly, is multilingual. I think we will be able to develop a new Africa that will seek mutual understanding of our problems and work together. But as it is, Africa is completely divided against itself. And that is why the diplomacy can never work. And a good example, look at it. In the West African region, for instance, the ECOWAS decided to adopt ECO as name for their regional currency. But there is a sort of hullabaloo between and amongst the leaders. The Francophones adopted that, and the Anglophones, the Arabophones and Lusophones are now saying, no, but this was what the ECOWAS agreed upon. Why do you now have to quickly do this? The Francophone West African countries are going along the path of the French, and now the house divided against itself. We talk about African unity. Where is the unity? We should stop deceiving ourselves. So on this note, let me thank you for giving me this opportunity to just give you a panoramic view of the points. Thank you for being all ears.
Thank you so much, Professor Bola. I like the way you ended, you are deceiving yourself. So yeah, we want to hear from Honorable Minister Liban. John F. Kennedy said that we must never negotiate out of fear, but we must never fail to negotiate. Looking at diplomacy, what makes the content of diplomacy is negotiation, persuasion, communication. What tactics does an excellent diplomat must excel, like drawing from the experience of international diplomacy and relations that young people can embrace for sure?
Thank you very much, Idris. First and foremost, I would like to start greeting all African fellow sisters and brothers who are watching or listening us tonight. I want to also take this opportunity to express my sincere gratitude and appreciation to African Rebirth team for inviting me to be part of this interesting webinar. It is indeed a noble idea to organize such a wonderful platform to revive and inspire fellow young African leaders. So thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. I would also like to thank Professor Bola for his magnificent and more elaborated presentation about this topic. As an active diplomat, I will look at from different perspectives. Professor Bola look the academician perspective. I will look at the real world practical perspective of these three questions that is in front of me. But before that, I would like to make a quick brief about Somaliland, because without doing so, you may get confused where I am from. Somaliland, Republic of Somaliland is a country in the eastern part of Horn of Africa. It's strategically located on the coast of Gulf of Aden and Red Sea. Current Republic of Somaliland is the former British Somaliland Protectorate. Somaliland got its independence in 1960, 26th of June, and united with Somalia, which was under Italian prestige. The essence of the voluntary union was driven by the strong sentiment and aspiration of Somaliland people to make or create a greater Somali Republic in the Horn of Africa, that all Somali-speaking community in the Horn of Africa and territories to come together and create one state, which was part of Pan-Africanism movement at that time as well. The marriage of the two countries did not succeed and malfunctioned at its inception, where Somaliland people encountered uncountable problems, isolationism, marginalization, ethnic cleansing, and gross human rights violations, and so on. After long struggle, Somaliland gained its sovereignty. It is regained its sovereignty in 1991, 18th of May. Since then, Republic of Somaliland has been a peaceful and politically stable country and made tremendous progress on many fronts, including peace building, which is a homegrown initiative, which Africa can follow suit, which is state building. Somaliland has made a strong institutions that's functioning very well at the moment. Somaliland made a vibrant democracy, competitive, free and fair elections where people elect from the president to municipality and municipal council. one of the most sophisticated elections in Africa. And it was last month which we elected our parliamentary and municipal elections. Somaliland has a booming free market economy. So these are the success stories in Somaliland, and it's totally different from Somalia of Mogadishu, which is a failed state as we speak. This 10 years, Somaliland has made a wonderful progress on foreign relations as well by expanding its diplomatic footprints across the globe, Africa, East Africa, Europe, and Far East Asia by employing vibrant, responsible diplomacy. So this is Somaliland that I am from as a deputy minister. If I go back to the topic and the first question, which is diplomacy is the art of enhancing power and restraining it. First and foremost, I believe it is fact that history has shown that diplomacy can be the art of enhancing power and at the same time restraining power too. And there's a practical examples. One of the examples is the US diplomacy towards China in 1971, 1972, when the Communist Party took over the power of China, and China was rising and becoming a more powerful country in terms of diplomatically, politically, socially, and economically. US government and the president of US, Mr. Nixon, has come up a diplomacy, a foreign policy to neutralize and avoid, China to leaning with Soviet Union. So in this case, United States used the art of diplomacy to restrain power and enhance power in the international arena. Another example is in 1967, when the Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser ordered the United Nations peacekeeping forces to go out of Sinai Peninsula to close the waterway between Israel and Egypt. That was a case that the Israel generals, declared and tried to respond by, armed forces, to use military forces to respond what the action of Egyptian president, but the Prime Minister of Israel has suggested to exert diplomatic pressure on Egypt rather than using military force. So in this case, Israel used the art of diplomacy to restrain power and enhance power as well. And they exert diplomatic pressure on Egypt to get their desired result. And this is another example, a good example, or an example that is, at the real time is the conflict between Ethiopia and Egypt over the Nile Dam, where Egypt is trying to use diplomatic pressure on Ethiopia to accept their demand on filling the Nile. And this can be another example in the real time. So I believe, using diplomacy as art of enhancing power and restraining power is a tool that African leaders, the African countries can use to avoid conflicts that is happening everywhere in Africa, from the corner that we are in the Horn of Africa to the southern Africa, to the southern part of Africa. So it is an example and a theory that African countries can use. The second question was what diplomatic tactics that have worked for Africa and how it can improve its counter-cordial forces of geographies. I strongly believe the only diplomacy that worked for Africa to date is Pan-Africanism and multilateral diplomacy. It is the formation of the Continental Union, currently known African Union, and the other regional organizations like the East African Community, ECOWAS, IGAD, SADC, COMESA, so on and so forth. This multilateral, diplomacy is, I think, the only diplomacy that worked for African continent, which itself has no strong fits and critically need to be improved. It has given not only a practical advantage to Africa, but also has been a matter of historic redress. Multilateralism is a mode of modern diplomacy, which a multi-stakeholder engagement rather than diplomacy of individual countries. So I believe it is good Africa to improve and strengthen this multilateral policy and compete with the European Union and other multilateral, continental organizations. That is much better than individual state diplomacy. So I believe this is one of the diplomacy that's work for Africa and needs to be revitalized. The third question, why should young leaders embrace diplomacy at an early stage? Since young generation are always the agent of change of our countries in Africa and in the continent in general, they should adapt diplomatic leadership in early stage so that they can make the real difference that's necessary for the continent to get the decided better change. The pressure mounts in Africa to take a great responsibility for development, peace, and security on the continent. Therefore, diplomatic practices will enhance leadership qualities needed to guide people and bring a better change. I believe Africa should change the mindset of their general public and the mindset of the leaders and diplomats as well. Africa should believe itself and self-reliance. So this is what I would like to say for now, and thank you very much again. Over to you.
Wow, thank you so much, Honorable Mainsalaba. I'm very I like your brief description of Somaliland because I just learned about Somaliland like 4 years ago. I didn't know that it exists, but you see, it has been a country since 30 years ago. So it's very good that you educate more people about Somaliland.
Thank you so much.
The wonderful work you've done. Yeah, so you said how young people should, why should they embrace diplomacy? I just want to ask, what role can the state take to encourage young diplomats? Because the role states can take, or governments, or put resources that encourages young people who are interested in diplomacy to undertake. Because in Africa, it's not about if you study diplomacy, it's about is your cousin or is royal or something like that. So they make grave mistakes. They don't know how to negotiate. They don't know how to communicate. They lack confidence of both the intellect and tactics. So how do we empower young people to be strong confidence in terms of tactics, but also in the intellect of the global politics? I would like Professor Bola to also take on that, but I'll begin from you.
Thank you very much, Idris. I believe one thing is that the African young leaders who are interested in diplomacy and politics should be given the opportunity first. They should be given the opportunity to present their countries in the front of diplomacy, as I was given by my president to take this important role and huge responsibility to present my country in the foreign relations front. The second thing is that young African leaders should also be proactive. And it's not always that you have to be given the responsibility. You have to be a minister. You have to be an ambassador to your country, to somewhere or some other countries. It is you who should take the lead and be proactive to engage, there's regional organizations, there's a local organizations, diplomacy is not always, it's not always cross-border. Diplomacy also is something that you can do and practice within your country, within your state border. And it is something that, as I begin with, it's something that we can practice from household level to international level. So I think the young African leaders who are interested, who has the passion to be diplomats, should take a bold step to engage with other, foreign organizations, to regional organizations, so that they prove themselves that they can take the role of being a diplomat, responsible diplomat to their respective countries and in the whole continent in general. So first, they should be given the responsibility by their respective individual countries in Africa. And the second thing is they should be proactive and engage and within their community and within their society, then cross their border.
Thank you. And maybe time to Professor Bola. What's your take on that?
You see, I think my brother Liban is rightly wrong. Right only to the extent that he's advocating multilateralism, but wrong to the extent that he's not looking at the implications of that, and particularly situational reality on the ground. Let me preface my comment by asking this question. Why is it that one single country like China, like France, like the United States, even Pakistan countries, each country will now want to negotiate with a whole continent of 54, 55 countries? At the level of a country like France, like the UK, that is unilateralism, one single country. They are now coming to secure the understanding of a 54-member country, 55-member country. How do you explain that? Secondly, international relations. There has been movement in it from bilateralism to plurilateralism and to multilateralism. In this case, the powerful countries of the world are no longer interested in all these so-called multilateralism. When they are talking in terms of trade, finance, assistance, they want to go bilateral. They will discuss one-on-one within the framework of multilateralism. So in this case, when Liban is asking for collective multilateralism within the framework of Africa, I agree with him. He's quite right. But the issue is that within that particular multilateral framework, powerful countries come within it and divide Africans. Africa is divided. If we are looking at how Africa can make progress, we must learn to open our eyes and see clearly. See clearly. In this case, what is happening? Please, when the Abuja Treaty of 1991, creating the African Economic Community, decided in Article 1D and 1E that Africa should no longer be considered as a region, the way it is at the level of the United Nations. That Africa should be divided into 5 regions. Why? For purposes of fast-tracking regional integration. Where are we at this particular level? Why is it that since 1991 to date, we are still having problems? Africa, look, there are too many problems. that we may not be able to address here based on empirical knowledge. Liban raised some of them tangentially, but is probably looking at the whole problem from the perspective of a Somalian. But you see, why, for instance, Africa cannot make progress and why diplomacy cannot go too far, it is simply because we do not have African diplomats. It's as simple as that. What we do have, we have Arabophone diplomats, we have Francophone diplomats, we have Anglophone diplomats,
Absolutely.
we have Russophone diplomats, and so on and so forth. So you need to have a diplomat with African orientation. We need to go back to what Mobutu Sese Seko, he was talking about African authenticism. They are you have Thabo Mbeki talking about African Renaissance. Really, we need to behave and talk as an African, not as an African European, not an American African. Please, this is the hard truth.
Yes, yeah. Thank you so much. And what I've learned from you is you're speaking from position of authority because you've been around diplomacy for a long time. So you see all these things and thank you so much for, we have Anglophone diplomats, Francophone diplomats, you know. Last time, I think you guys saw what was taking.
Please, if you permit, on the issue of youth.
Yes.
The only condition for our youth to be relevant in the future is to get appropriate education in diplomacy.
Yes.
I'm not talking about education in chemistry, in aviation industry. No. Diplomacy is an elite profession. Please permit the word Dick and Harry. It is not meant for any Dick and Harry. It's necessarily elitist. Please, for instance, there is a mania of dressing. There is a mania, when you put a red tie, what does it mean at a particular time? You have a table diplomacy, you have dress diplomacy, you have protocol, you have etiquette. So if the youth want to be relevant, they must first of all engage themselves, learn about this before going to any Minister of Foreign Affairs. And in this case, that's why I've suggested that there is need for citizen diplomacy involving the citizens. So if there's any problem, misunderstanding between Nigeria and Somaliland, for instance, you need not send any foreign minister. The citizens themselves, they are leaders. I and Liban can come to Nigeria, he can stay in my house. Now we'll be relating as African brothers without fear. That is how the youth can be relevant if they are engaged. My center in Lagos, what we normally do is to train people on the art of diplomacy. How do you negotiate? When do you talk? In Africa, they all people say all protocols duly observed and they abuse. Can you really do that one? No, you can observe the protocolar measures put in place. So if the youth are ready, yes, the future has no limit for them.
Wow. The future has no limit for them, for young people. So I know the audience has a lot of questions. I will stop here and I'll hand over the audience again to Nelisa to lead the Q&A. Then we'll have conclusive remarks. I believe I'm seeing in the chat people are popping up ideas. So Nelisa, back to you.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Bola and Minister Liban. I found both of your talks very insightful. I want to start off by reading two comments in the chat that I found quite insightful. One is from Tariku and it says, the only way to apply persuasive communication in Africa is using both hard and soft power. But as Professor Bola said, we should have to unite strongly our Africans, unless that would be difficult to apply those persuasive mechanisms. And another comment I found interesting was from Mazig, and he said, to achieve modern African diplomacy, we need to educate the four C's: communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. So your
Wow.
talks are getting a lot of engagement from our audience.
Yeah.
So now we're going to be moving into our Q&A. If you have a question, you can raise your hand. If your mic isn't working, feel free to drop your question in the chat box and I will read it aloud. I'm going to start off by calling on Tulani. Just tell us who your question is for. And yeah, you can go right ahead. You can unmute yourself.
Thank you so much. My name is Tulani Keswa. I'm from Zambia. And this is a very interesting topic that we have today. It's very interesting in the sense that there's so much going on in the African continent with regards to issues of diplomacy and the young people. I just want to make a comment. So much has been said today about issues of diplomacy. And for me, I feel it's coming from an academic perspective. We are talking about young people studying diplomacy and the like, but are we really seeing these issues happening on the continent? For example, Zambia today is undergoing elections, and we have a lot of international observers that we need now more than ever to speak for us. But these issues are not coming out. These people from the African Union are not speaking on behalf of us, the young people. We have voted today. The young people have come out in numbers more than ever. We have voted, but the African Union, other organizations are not speaking for us, the young people. What we want is these issues of diplomacy not to be theoretical in nature, but they must be implemented. The truth must be able to come out theoretical perspective, but let us see them working in action in our countries today. And this is what I want to say as a young person, that for me, I feel for as long as we keep on talking about these issues and we're not really seeing them working on the ground, then there's nothing much that we're achieving. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that, Tulani. Professor Bola, would you like to respond to that on the differences between theoretical and practicalities?
I like my Zambian brother because he is explaining my position differently, that African leaders are not responding to their concerns. I've just said that, look, you have elections in Zambia, and you say African Union, everyone, nobody is coming to speak on the trust. Now, do you send election observers to the UK, to America during elections, the way they are sending to us? When people go as observers, they are going there objectively to report. But when international observers are coming to Africa, is to ensure credibility, to ensure fairness, justice in the election. Because we Black people, we African people, we are noted for election rigging. Our leaders, they have sit-tight mentality in government. So in this case, my Zambian brother is now lending credence to my position that, look, here, we are not a very serious people. We are not united. Why not bring only African observers who will now tell the Zambian leader to do what is right? Everybody is talking about preparing the youth of today for greater responsibilities tomorrow. When you do not engage them now, how would they be good leaders? How would they? So I appreciate what he has said. And the bottom line, you know, Liban, my brother, the Somalian, is a politician. And I'm not surprised that he will also speak as a politician. My Zambian friend says, we have been looking at it academically. When you don't look at issues academically, how can you then come out with good or suggestions? I make my own opinion on the basis of hard research finding, and this is the bitter truth. So when African leaders, for instance, are not responsible to grow, to develop the youth, Please, how will you then expect the youth to be responsible and relevant in the future? I think it's very right. And all we need to do, I must commend my brother Will for organizing this, so that people can begin to agree or disagree with the points that have been made. One interlocutor said there's need for creativity, there's need for collaboration, etc. I will agree, but the environmental conditionings must also be there. You can dream well when your bed is good, when you don't have bed bugs, when there are no mosquitoes. But if you are sleeping in an environment that is infected with, squalor, disease, etc., no, you will not be able to think well. And the environment in which the youth currently find themselves is not clement. It is inclement, and that is the issue.
Thank you for that, Professor Bola. Minister Liban, given that you work in the Minister of Foreign Affairs, what is your perspective on that? What do you think are the minister's responsibilities in giving youth voices, recognition, and attention?
Thank you very much. I would like to commend what Mr. Tulani from Zambia, a young brother from Zambia, expressed his feeling on youth participation in politics, in power, in their respective countries. I would give you an example. Professor is coming from academician perspective, and himself and Sudani himself, they said that it's not practical that youth to be given the chance to be part of their leadership, the leadership of their respective countries. I would give you an example in Somaliland. A month ago, we have elected a parliament, and I mean 70% of the parliament is under 35 people. Our cabinet ministers, 30% of them are less than 35 years old. Our municipality, the elected council, I believe 90% of these elected members are less than 40 years age. So it is practical that youth to be engaged, to be part of their, political process of their countries. It depends on the leadership of that respective country in Africa. Our president, our former president, make the road very smooth for young people to compete for elections, to be part of the political system, to be elected as MPs, to be elected as municipality council, to be part of the cabinet and decision making. Most of the ministers who are in the key ministers are like me. They are less than 40 years age. So it can be done in Africa. If it is done in Somaliland, it can be done in Nigeria, it can be done in Zambia. So it depends on African leaders to take a bold step and respect the role of young people who are over 70% in almost every country in Africa. I mean, it can be done. It's something that's practical, and I will invite the professor from Nigeria and that young man from Zambia to come and witness the reality and the first-hand information from Somaliland. I'm not saying because I am a politician, I'm saying because it happened. It is there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for those comments, Minister Liban. I think it's absolutely incredible how youth is so actively involved in Somaliland. I see, Kabeja, you have your hand raised. You can unmute yourself, tell us who your question is for, and go right ahead.
All right, thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. And I'm so honored to be part of this meeting. For sure, I have two questions regarding to the presentation of Professor Bola. And I would like to ask him about what he presented about what is really needed for the good diplomat, or if I can call it the excellent diplomats, to be available here in Africa. First of all, my name is Kabeja Laki. I'm from Rwanda. And the second question will be, what do you think is stopping African countries to promote citizen diplomacy, like you mentioned in your presentation? Thank you so much.
Okay, perfect. Professor Bola, would you like to respond to that?
Thank you. Let me, first of all, commend Liban on the revelation that the youth are doing well in Somaliland. This is what we want. I'm not aware of that one. If Liban is saying they are doing well there, he cannot be wrong because he knows better than we do. On the question of why talk about a good diplomat, excellent diplomat now? First of all, I do not believe that we can have an excellent diplomat. The best that we can talk about is to say good diplomat. But why are we talking about that today? It is simply because in diplomatic practice, okay, look at the current example of the diplomatic row between Nigeria and Indonesia. When a Nigerian diplomat was mercilessly, wickedly, and ruthlessly enslaved, aggressed in a manner even worse than that of George Floyd in the United States. Now, the diplomat tried, for instance, by available data on both sides, to say he has diplomatic status. But the Indonesian immigration officers refused to acknowledge that, to the extent now that the Nigerian diplomat said, okay, you will know me better. Let me follow you to your office. And they now went to South Jakarta Immigration Office Center to go and do that. Now, who is a diplomat? A good diplomat is one who will insist not only on his right, but bear in mind that he's a representative of a sending state, regardless of the manner of mistreatment. Now, in Africa, generally, do we have diplomats that are prepared to go through the length and breadth of these acts of wickedness? When people want to go to the UK, to America, to Canada, they easily forget that the older generations of Americans, Canadians, the British, they worked to make their country great, good, and friendly, to allow for people to come. Now we need diplomats and other public servants to accept the responsibility to carry the burden of suffering, difficult, inclement conditions to make Africa great. That's what I call a good diplomat. A good diplomat can have a good wish, but if he does not have the requisite qualification, is it good? African diplomats, African leaders, we see them, they sleep at international conferences. Why? Why is that so? Please, during the time of Muammar Gaddafi in Addis Ababa, Muammar Gaddafi can afford the luxury to go to mosque, to go and pray, while other African leaders are waiting. I ask you, why is it that the South African foreign minister, when she was chairperson of the AU Commission, why did she introduce timing? Now, African leaders will come, diplomats will come, they will talk endlessly, thanking the host for hosting them very well, for warm reception. You know, they waste time unnecessarily to the extent now that they now gave them what they call the 7.5 rule. 7 minutes for the totality of your submission. When it is 5 minutes of submission, the bell will ring, signal will be given you. At the end of the next 2 minutes, they cut you off, even if you have not finished. Please, we need African diplomats. In fact, African diplomatists, people who combine the art of diplomacy with academic, you know, lifestyle. That is why I have talked about the need for a committed African diplomat. We should not be talking about Somali diplomat. We should not be talking about Zambian diplomat. We should not be talking about Nigerian diplomat. We should be talking about a diplomat that has, you know, the African mentality, African culture, African pride. That's what we need. On the second question, what constitutes obstacle to citizen diplomacy? I wouldn't say there is any obstacle so far. It is simply because African youth, African elders and leaders are not yet used to it. They are only used to formal diplomacy, official diplomacy. Citizen diplomacy is basically people to people. If, for instance, my brother Liban, my Zambian brother, now wants to create an association of Zambian Nigerian group and exchanging, like Liban is asking me and the Zambian people to come and see in Somaliland what is happening. Well, lay the foundation for it. Give me the opportunity to come. Don't create a visa problem. Then I will come there. They will discuss. Then Nigerian people will sit down with their counterparts and address the problem in Somalia and Somaliland, to put it that way. And then we'll be moving forward. But there's no obstacle for now because it is not known. What we have actually now, we have professional organizations, professional lawyers, for instance. In West Africa, you have the Guild of Editors cutting across. We have lawyers collaborating. That is one element of citizen diplomacy, but it has to be officially developed and promoted.
Thank you so much for that, Professor Bola. I genuinely think diplomacy is something that's so glamorized, so I'm glad that you're highlighting the burden that comes with that. Emika, I see you have a question. Can you unmute yourself and go ahead? Cool, we can see you, but we can't hear you. Emika, do you want to unmute yourself? Okay, maybe it was an accidental question. I'm just gonna read a question from the comments. Let me just pull this up. Minister Liban, maybe you can answer this one. Polite is asking, what is the role of the African Union in making sure that we achieve this African diplomacy?
Well, the African Union as an continental organization was supposed to lead the African diplomacy in the international arena. And this is where the professor me and the professor were not, on the same page. We know that the African Union, the current African Union, AU, has not the capacity to present Africa like the European Union and other continental unions. But I believe it is this platform, it is only this platform that we need to improve and strengthen to present Africa to speak one voice. But we know that the reality at the moment is the AU is not capable enough to present Africa because it depends African Union itself. It depends other, countries, superpowers like China. The headquarters of African Union in Addis Ababa is built by China. So it is very difficult African Union to present African interest in the international arena. And I agreed with what Professor said earlier on. But I believe if we improve, if we strengthen the capacity of the AU as a continental organization, if we get the right leadership within the member state countries of these 55 countries, I believe African Union can present Africa and make and speak the voice of African countries.
Thank you so much for that, Minister Liban. I definitely think that's very insightful.
Professor Bola is laughing. He's laughing. Please let him respond.
You see,
yes,
my
okay,
brother,
let him respond. It's fine. Let
him respond.
I will say again that you are rightly wrong. You are right because of the points you raised, but you didn't go beyond that. When you talk about China and other powerful countries, that's where I disagree with you. It is the African leaders that are against themselves. Let me give you one illustration to behave like you as a diplomatician. Now, you are aware of the Ezewini consensus. Ezewini consensus. The background to it, since we are talking about the representation of Africa and speaking with one voice, that it is no longer going to be possible. I agree with you at that level. Ezewini consensus has a background this way. Africa initially requested for 5 permanent seats on the UN Security Council on the basis that Africa has 5 regions. So the intention is to have 1 permanent representative for each region of Africa. The powerful countries, especially the permanent 5, said that no, it become unwieldy. They don't want that one. They settled for only 2 seats. What about the international politics of the 2? The United States is interested in having Egypt to have a permanent seat. By implication, the US is saying that the other seat should be contested by Nigeria and South Africa. Because in this case, we are talking about representational justice, according to which South Africa and Nigeria were being sponsored for the seat. But Egypt does not qualify to be a region. Egypt is either in Africa today, in the Arab world in the afternoon, the following day, different situation. So Egypt does not qualify because the Arab world does not constitute a region by UN definition. Whereas a representative is supposed to come from a region, is regional representation. So what happened was that American diplomacy is more interested in having Egypt take a place from Africa as a region. It didn't work that way. So what happened in Addis Ababa, this is not a hearsay. I had the opportunity to witness on the spot. First of all, countries like Algeria, Libya, Egypt itself, Egypt accused Nigeria because by that particular time, Olusegun Obasanjo, former Nigeria's president, was the AU chairman. My foreign minister was chairman of the executive council. So they kicked against that. They frustrated all that. A committee of 10 people, 2 from each region of Africa, was constituted to go and convince, to go and lobby internationally. What happened? It is the same African leaders for selfish interests that frustrated that. That is why we cannot speak with one voice. That's the problem. If the youth are suffering today, they are suffering from the viruses coming from African leaders. So the problem is more complex. So if we cannot speak with one voice, in fact, the youth are also guilty. Why is it that the youth cannot complain and protest against the government to say, look, let us foster African unity? Why will an African country prevent me as a black man from coming to their country? And you are creating obstacles. Why is it? So if I cannot travel with ease, if I cannot feel free in a black country, in an African country, and a non-African country in Europe will give me a warm welcome, that is what is happening to African leaders.
Thank you so much for that insight, yes, Professor Bola. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but unfortunately we're running out of time. But thank you so much for that. I've really enjoyed how you and Minister Liban are coming from very different perspectives. It's made this debate very enlightening. Professor Bola, I'm just going to ask you. I'm just going to ask you to please give us your closing remarks. You have 2 minutes. Please keep it brief. Just your closing remarks for today.
Well, without being in government as of today, I want to tell all my brothers in Zambia, in the whole of Africa, that we have a president of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, who has opened the doors, the gates of Nigeria to all Africans without the need for a passport or visa. When you arrive the gates of Nigeria at the border post, please, for as long as you are COVID virus free, you are most welcome. Africa is the centerpiece of Nigeria's foreign policy, and I think we are the most, very friendly country in Africa, as reflected in our foreign policy.
Thank you so much for that, Professor Bola. I'm sure we'll all be coming to Nigeria soon. We'll come and we'll visit you.
You will stay in my house, no problem.
Yes, no, I'm coming to your house. We're coming straight there. Minister Liban, can we please have your closing remarks?
Thank you very much, Nerissa and Idris, for organizing this wonderful platform to exchange ideas on regional interest. Thanks for the professor for his enlightenment. And it is good to talk to him in this interesting topic. I would like to say what I have said before. We need to, as African people and as African leaders, we need to change the mindset of the general public of Africa. We need to change from the the aid-dependent mindset from self-sufficient mindset. We need to be proud to be Africans. Africa is rich in terms of resources. Africa has the manpower and the market to sustain its economy. I believe it is our responsibility as leaders, as academicians, as journalists, as Africans, to change the mindset of our people in Africa, in this continent, and we can do to be a self-sufficient continent and self-sufficient individual countries in Africa. Therefore, we can have the power to negotiate other continents, other countries in the foreign relations. Thank you very much. It was an interesting topic, and good night.
Thank you so much, Minister Liban. It has been such an honor having both of you. Now I'm just going to call up our founder, Mr. Enoch, to give the final closing remarks of the webinar.
Thank you so much. It's very hard to end the webinar when there is two contrasting views. I would like Professor Bola and Minister Liban to stay behind, but we are constrained with the time. And studies show that after 1 hour, people drop listening, so they lose interest. So we want to keep in time in terms of scientific evidence. So otherwise, thank you very much, Minister Liban.
Thank you very much.
My name in Islam is Idris. Enoch is Idris. That's why he calls me Idris. So no problem at all. Professor Bola, thank you so much for your wonderful time and submissions. And the young people, everyone here from every corner of Africa, I hope you learned. You said something very critical, that to be a good diplomat, what do you have to do? One thing I sensed in your submission is patriotism, Pan-Africanism, because you can be you could have high command of communication, intellect, tactics, equipped, but when you don't have the heart, the mindset, the ideology of Africa, of course, you'll be a nice sellout, a smart sellout, like people have done in the past. And so this platform, African Rebirth, like our mission states, is to defy mediocrity. The mediocrity that has responded in our politics, in our economies, the dependence syndrome Liban is talking about. That's all mediocrity. Poverty, when you Google like the most poorest continent, it's Africa that comes first. We need to change that. It should make people annoyed, and they're like, why should we keep this? Why can't we be ranked as the fastest grow? The only way we get positive, the fastest growing countries. No, we need to graduate the ball, right? It's so tiresome. It's so old. It's so outdated. We need to go to developed countries. And like people say, the leaders at African Union do not fall from heaven to come and lead Africa. They're a product of a bigger structure, a bigger program structure, the leadership. So they come from, these are our fathers, these are our aunties, these are our brothers, these are our sisters. We come from the same family. So we cannot only hang African leaders for not doing the part. The problem is societal. So that's why orienting these platforms at an earlier age is a golden opportunity. So I like Africans, young Africans on the platform, to always embrace and defy the idea of mediocrity. It's so disturbing, and we need to move forward. And diplomats say that diplomats is doing things and is doing and saying things the nicest way, in the nicest way. We can, improve that. We can produce good diplomats who represent Africa. When you look at the UN, when other diplomats are sitting, African diplomats are busy taking selfies at the African Union headquarters. People are discussing matters that affect the world. You are just wondering, am I in heaven? So we need like exposure. We need our government to support. We need to go beyond the old style diplomacy. And the future is young people. So like I always say that Africa counts on you, and African Rebirth counts on you. So ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to adjourn this important meeting. So thank you very much, everyone. Stay blessed. See you very soon. Hopefully I'll come to Nigeria without a passport. And
thank you very much.
Liban will host me. So thank you so much, everyone. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Liban.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.